Hi, I'm John, and this is a My Little Pony doll. And in a matter of minutes, you'll discover why this doll carries the secret to reducing your power bills. Now, believe it or not, this sparkly little doll is your golden ticket to saving literally hundreds on your power bill each and every month. Watch this presentation until the end, and you'll also discover the single biggest technological breakthrough which may even allow you to pay zero for your electricity without breaking the law. That's right, this is 100% legal. In fact, 56,700 fellow Patriots are already using these simple tricks. Plus, you'll discover the 3 things you absolutely must avoid if you want to get off the grid for good. Fair warning, I'm getting pressure from the powers that be to take this free presentation down. After all, energy is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the things I'm going to share with you today are somewhat frowned upon by the bigwigs at Pacific Gas and Electric, Edison, and so on. So watch this right now before I'm forced to take it down. Now, you may think you've tried it all or seen it all when it comes to reducing your power bill. Yet I can guarantee you've never seen anything like what I'm about to reveal to you today. And one tip in particular will totally shock you. It's my absolute favorite, and it's near the end, so keep watching. Remember, I'm about to share the exact techniques thousands of Americans are using right now to reduce their power bills. But first, I want to share a really personal and somewhat embarrassing story with you about how I stumbled upon this energy blueprint. You'll see why I was reluctant to even include this story in about a minute, so stay with me. Deal? I wasn't always a stickler for penny pinching. In fact, far from it. I used to splurge on food, clothes, and trips for the kids. We were living comfortably without much of a care in the world. But that all changed. I remember this as if it were yesterday. It was October 10th, 2006. It was really cloudy, and the rain was lightly sprinkling. There was no sound outside, no birds chirping, no leaves rustling. It was just still. Wearing my checkered pullover and gray sweats, I spent the day just staring up into the clouds. I didn't even eat. The reason I remember October 10th, 2006 so clearly is because it was the day after I was fired from my machine operating job of 15 years. Our mortgage repayments had just gone up, the economy was on shaky grounds, and people in my position were going months before finding work. And to top it off, I had something waiting for me in the mailbox. A $900 power bill. Right then, it dawned on me that this money situation simply wasn't going to get any better unless I took action, and I did, just like you're about to today. However, even though I knew I was ready for a change, I needed one more thing to really push me over the edge and get me to move from money victim to financially empowered. You see, it was exactly 2 weeks before my daughter's 7th birthday. Well, you can probably guess what present she wanted. A My Little Pony set. My worst nightmare became a reality. I was going to have to look my soon-to-be 7-year-old daughter in the eyes and tell her she couldn't have the one present she wanted. I felt out of control, as if I was worthless as a father and as a husband. I decided at that very moment to make a change that would affect my life forever. I will never, ever feel this helpless again, and I'll turn things around or die trying. I couldn't do much about our mortgage repayments, and I couldn't do much about the economy. But I sure as heck could do something about those insanely high power bills. I knew if I could just reduce those bills by even 50%, it would add up to a huge difference. But I was able to reduce it by much more than 50%. I swear I've read 100 books on the subjects of DIY energy saving and spent hours scouring the net, research journals, and even picked the brains of the top experts to discover their secrets. Eventually, I uncovered an unexpected formula, a formula that works for every person, every time. Not only is this formula very inexpensive, it pays for itself in a matter of months. Then every month after that is pure saving. And today I'm going to share it with you and save you the hassles and years of effort it took me to hone this formula into perfection. So keep watching. Keep in mind that I'm no different from you. I just happen to have stumbled upon a really simple step-by-step system for the average person like you and me. I'm going to reveal the entire formula within this presentation, but before I do, I feel compelled to be honest with you and let you know about the real and serious problem you face right now. There's a common enemy we all share who's responsible for the outrageous utility bills we face. You've been led to believe the high rate you pay is your fault. It's not. The shocking truth is that you've been lied to when it comes to the viability of alternative energy sources. These lies have literally cost you thousands. For example, you may have heard or perhaps even believed at one point that you have to spend a lot of money in order to benefit from solar energy. But it's not true. It's lies. Solar power is very affordable for the average person like you or me. Now you might be thinking, but why are we led to believe it's so expensive? Well, it all comes down to the relationship between the government and the big energy corporations. You see, government doesn't want us to get off the grid and become self-sustainable. They actually want us to struggle every month as we scrape the bottom of our penny jars to pay these energy crooks. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. The fact is, every government in recent history has been in bed with the big energy conglomerates. Do you know how much money these big energy companies donate to the government every year? Hundreds of millions. Do you really think the government's going to go against the hand that feeds them? Of course not. And who loses out? Yep, that's right. You and me. The government and the big energy companies have been preying on a trusting public for years, and we've fallen victim to their lies just so they can make a profit. They're smart. The lies are clever, subtle, and have fooled millions of really savvy folk like you and me. I was fooled for years by these lies. Forbes published a recent article revealing one of these nasty lies. In the article, they showed energy prices are not a result of supply and demand like we've been led to believe. Rather, energy prices are based on pure speculation and linked to trends in the stock market instead of actual raw costs. The article reads, "This means that every time the stock market rises, oil and gas prices get pulled up too, and vice versa. There's no logical reason for this. Gas prices should adjust because of a change in the forces driving the underlying supply of or demand for oil, not because stock prices are at a historic high." And this is just one example of the shady and deceptive nature of energy companies and the way our government allows it to go on. And if you think things are getting better, well, think again. Recently, the Wall Street Journal announced electricity prices are set to rise 101%. I mean, President Obama himself has come right out and said energy prices will continue to rise, even though supplies remain plentiful.
You know, when I was asked earlier about the issue of coal, under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Even, regardless of what I say about whether coal is good or bad, because I'm capping greenhouse gases, coal power plants, natural gas, you name it, whatever the plants were, whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
On top of that, we're also paying for the shoddy infrastructure of these companies.
Next, crumbling roads and bridges and a flickering electricity grid. America's infrastructure is creaking these days, and it's becoming a big problem. Even though Mother Nature's played a hand in wrecking supplies recently, the government is earmarking money for almost anything other than energy, as Miniport Naya found out.
Over the past decade, America has spent hundreds of billions in the name of national security. Wars, military intervention, fighting terrorists, and hunting online hackers. Meantime, getting much less attention is a domestic danger lurking in and lighting up every corner of the country: the U.S. power grid. In recent months, federal officials have warned that America's electric cables, substations, and transformers are not sufficiently secured and are vulnerable to attack by anyone with a weapon and some basic know-how. Experts say the energy grid is also outdated and antiquated, unable to prevent outages from cascading. In October, Superstorm Sandy hit 24 states, causing some $63 billion in damage. More than 4.5 million people lost power, and New York was left crippled by massive floods, leaving much of the city, including half of the Big Apple, plunged into darkness.
Now that you're aware of the lies and how they've been costing you thousands over the years, let's dive into the 3 tips I have for you today, so you can turn things around for you and your family and unshackle yourself from these profiteers for good. These are the exact same tips and tactics that over 50,000 other cost-conscious Americans have used to massively reduce, even eliminate their energy bills. Just remember, I'll be sharing my most important tip last, so keep watching till the end. Now first, I want to share a simple tip with you that will get you started on the path to success, today, right now. This first tip I alluded to earlier, and it's this. Now, if you want to cut your energy bill in half, or even eliminate it completely in the quickest, easiest way possible, start with producing solar power. But don't pay 10 grand or 15 grand to have a solar company do it for you. You see, the major benefit of solar is that it's so simple that you can do it all yourself in a weekend. And I'm going to show you exactly how. Here's how I did it. I purchased super inexpensive solar cells online. Then I drove down to my local hardware store where my buddy Bill worked. I told him what I was doing and purchased all of the materials I needed right there. I took my plans to the backyard and got to work. And guess what? I completed my first solar panel in just one afternoon. Wait, it gets better. The cost? The cost of my homemade solar panel was just a paltry $98.23. I worked out that I could build a complete solar PV system for just a few $100. So we know solar is the simplest and cheapest way for producing our own electricity and breaking free from the crazy prices those big energy companies demand from us. Okay, now it's time for tip number 2. And this is something I get asked all the time. Where do I position the solar panels? Well, the short answer is you want to place your solar panels where they get the most sun for the longest period of time each day. If they can be directly exposed to the sun from 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, you're good to go. But what if it's cloudy? Well, if you're in an area that's cloudy, most of the time you'll receive diffused solar energy. Therefore, it's not vital at what angle you mount the panels because the light will come in at many different angles instead of directly from the sun. And if you live in an area that gets lots of fog in the morning, you should mount the panels more towards the afternoon sun so they catch most of the sunlight after the fog clears. The best way of evaluating the daily amount of direct sunlight is plotting sun charts, which are a means of graphically displaying the movement of the sun across the sky. Plotting a sun chart is a bit complicated and yeah, it takes quite a bit of time. But fortunately, there are online resources that'll do it for you simply by entering the latitude and longitude of your residence. I'll show you how to access my favorite sun plotter a little later on. This piece of advice alone will save you many hours of fussing about like I did. It's about to get even better, though, because now I'll be sharing my most vital tip when it comes to going off the grid and keeping those hard-earned dollars in your pocket. Warning, without using this tip, you can forget about those other tips I just shared with you. It's that crucial. It's the tactic behind all success in every DIY solar project. If you fail to do it, more than likely the project will never get off the ground. Tip number 3 is about how to accurately predetermine the size of your PV system. Oh, by the way, PV stands for photovoltaic, which in a nutshell means getting electricity from light. Now, don't be fooled by the simplicity of working out your electricity usage. Trust me, I lost a lot of time and money on my first project because I missed this very step. There are several factors you got to take into account to determine the size of the PV system you're going to need. First, the total amount of watt-hours per day that all your appliances use. You'll also need to know your peak output in watts and what time of the day most of your energy will be used. Wattages can be read off the label of your appliances. If the label, however, states the amps instead of watts, multiply the amps by the voltage, which in most households is 120 volts, and that'll result in the number of watts the device is using. For example, let us assume that you have a device plugged into the wall that is currently drawing 2 amps. When 2 amps is multiplied by 120 volts, the amount of wattage is 240 watts. Now, by adding the total of all the appliances and including the phantom loads, you can determine what power output you need for your PV system. Now, if you get this right, it's smooth sailing. Imagine the shock and surprise in the eyes of your friends, family, and colleagues